Good morning and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy this beautiful Friday morning with me, Pastor Amanda. Today we are diving into chapter 18 of the Acts of the Apostles and a little bit of excitement. There's always excitement when you're around Paul, so we'll kind of see what he's getting himself into today. Well, we find that after his little conversations with the Athenians, who are willing to listen to him some more, he has decided to go off to Corinth. And there he finds himself, I love all these names, but he meets a man named Aquila. And he is there with his wife Priscilla, and because of Claudius, who had told them all Jews have to leave Rome. So here we have Aquila and Priscilla living in Corinth, and Paul has introduced himself to them. And again, immediately they start preaching in the synagogue. And it also says that at this point in time, too, that Silas and Timothy have finally caught up with Paul from proclaiming the word from Macedonia. So if you remember, they kind of had separated different ways for a while, but now they are back together. And they're all preaching to the Jews about the Messiah, Jesus. And what it says is that when they opposed and reviled him in protest, he took the dust from his clothes and said to them, your blood is on your own hands. And so it makes it sound like the Jewish people of this synagogue wanted nothing to do with Paul. But what we find out is that he then goes to another man's house, Titus, Justus, who is a worshiper of a god, and he happens his house is next door to the synagogue. And so he has this Crispus, the official of the synagogue, was there too. And so we find that Paul makes it sound like everybody rejected him, but here we have another man in town who is right next to the synagogue. We have one of the Jewish officials in town who also becomes a believer. And so I think it's important to recognize that there might be this loud majority voice saying things are going this way, but really people's actions are showing what's really going on. But it's interesting to me. I mean, I don't know if anybody else finds this out at churches, but it's usually sometimes the angriest people that are the loudest. And it's those who are just trying to be peacemakers, who are just trying to show love and trying to, be followers of Jesus, that sometimes have a tendency to be the quieter ones because they're trying to follow Jesus's teachings of love others and bring peace and gentleness and kindness. And so we still see that happening. Yes, there's a loud group that are speaking against Paul. However, there are always these people around who are ready to be baptized and to be believers. And then this is kind of interesting in this chapter, in verse 9, Paul says that he had a dream. And God spoke to him in this dream to not be afraid, but speak up and do not be silent, for I am with you, and no one will lay a hand on you to harm you, for there are many in the city who are my people. Now, what I find interesting about this is that this was a vision, that he received it from God, but this vision that he's given is for this particular instance. We know this. We know what happens to Paul. So he can't take this vision and say, this is going to apply for me the rest of my life, that I'm not going to be harmed. And I think sometimes we hear God's voice and we think it's like a one and done. And God's voice is never a one and done. God's voice is usually like, in this situation, I'm taking care of you, because we don't know what's going to happen next. And so I think it's important and good to know that Paul realizes that it wasn't like the this is the set of my career that I will not be hurt and I can speak with anything I want to. He still has to take precaution later on. And though I don't know that he takes a lot because he ends up in prison quite a bit. But anyways, recognizing that when God speaks to us, it's in that time for that moment and not necessarily something that we can then just say across the board and then people then will start to question God later in life. Well, God said this. And it's like, yeah, for that time, not for this time. So being aware that God continually speaks and works in our lives is very important, I think. So then we have this other little encounter now because what Paul is, of course, the Jews are upset again. And so they bring him to this proconsul, Galileo. And yes, my thoughts went to the same place, but it's not that Galileo. And it's probably I'm saying it wrong because that's what I got stuck in my head. But anyways, he's brought before them and Paul's about to speak for himself. He's about to say something. And this proconsul goes, "Are you really bringing this man here just because of the words he's saying and the things he's saying you can do?" He goes, "I am here to speak against those who have crime or serious villainy on their record." And he's like, I'm not here to judge this kind of stuff. Like, this is petty. And so he sends him out, goes, "Leave me, leave my court." So it's kind of nice. But then, all of a sudden, they seize another person, official of the synagogue, Sothenius, and they beat him in front of the tribunal, and still this guy pays no attention to anything. I'm starting to think this judge just does not want to do his job at all. He has an excuse for everything that he's not going to do. But anyways, Paul gets out of that one. So, God is watching out for him in that way, and unfortunately, somebody else still got the rough end of the stick on that one. So then we find that Paul stays there for a considerable amount of time, which makes sense with the number of letters that we have for him to the Corinthian church. So, it kind of makes sense that he would have been there for a while. But then he finally has to say farewell, and he's accompanied by Priscilla and Aquila on this little adventure. And so they find themselves at Ephesus. I find it very interesting, too. There's just this little thing that now Paul has his hair cut because he's under a vow. I would like to know more about that, but I have not had time to research that this morning. But he is under a new vow now. And so when they got to Ephesus, Priscilla and Aquila kind of separated from Paul at this point in time. And Paul, he said, if God wills, I'll come back. And so he set sail from Ephesus. And so it says that he went up towards Jerusalem, and again he went, and then he went down to Antioch, and he's just kind of traveling around, strengthening the disciples. So he definitely sees himself as a shepherd to the disciples that are there and continues to help them. Now we switch back to Aquila and Priscilla, who are in Ephesus, and it says that a new Jew has showed up on the scene named Apollos, and he actually is really quite accurate on everything he's teaching. He's instructed on the way of the Lord, it says, but it says that he doesn't quite know the full picture. But he's really passionate about what he does. And so Priscilla and Aquila take him and mentor him to know it even better. And from that, it says that he was encouraged to continue to travel and share this. And so now we have this new disciple out there traveling and sharing the gospel. And so now we have the ministry of Apollos out there that's going on. And so I think it's kind of neat how we're recognizing that through mentorship, through guidance. Like, you see it time and time again. Paul works with Priscilla and Aquila for a while, and then they go in their own ways. And then Priscilla and Aquila take responsibility for Apollos. And then you know that Apollos is... I mean, there's this continually mentoring that's going on so that discipleship can travel. And I mean, there's levels of it. You know, Paul's doing small groups, he's doing preaching, he's mentoring personally. And it's just the importance that's our responsibility too. When we are members of a congregation, when we're part of a church, when we're just followers of Jesus, this is ours. We're supposed to be doing all this mentoring and sharing the story, sharing the love along the way. And in the ups and downs, we're to be doing it. And so I hope you can find encouragement in how you are being a mentor and a guide to others in your life, and seeking out the mentors and guides you need in your life too. Because Apollos, remember, he thought he was doing good, but he still needed a little more. And I think we all need a little more. So maybe it's time to seek out that mentor or guide you need to grow you deeper and more accurate. I don't know that that's good, but deeper in your relationship with Christ. And so that's what I have for you today. I hope you find some hope, faith, and joy in today's daily devotion. I look forward to seeing you on Monday, and I hope you have a beautiful weekend. Thanks for joining me. Bye.